You know, I've always believed that some stories are best told over a glass of wine, when the world slows down, and memories float to the surface like bubbles in a glass. Tonight feels like one of those nights. The bar is dimly lit, with flickering candles casting soft shadows on the walls. The gentle hum of jazz music wraps around me, and the warmth of the wine in my hand seeps into my soul. It's in these moments, with the world hushed, that the heart dares to whisper its truths. I met him on a night much like this. The rain was tapping gently against the windows, and I was lost in thought, swirling my drink absent-mindedly. He approached with a smile that held both mischief and melancholy, and asked if the seat next to me was taken. It wasn't, and neither was my heart, though I didn't know it at the time. We talked for hours, our words weaving a tapestry of shared dreams and silent sorrows. He spoke of distant lands and forgotten songs, and I listened, captivated by the cadence of his voice and the depth of his gaze. Have you ever felt an instant connection with someone, as if your souls recognized each other from a past life? That's how it felt with him. Our meetings became regular, each encounter peeling back layers of our guarded selves. We'd share stories, laughter, and sometimes, comfortable silences. He had a way of making the mundane magical, turning ordinary moments into cherished memories. But life, as it often does, had its own plans. Circumstances shifted, and the tides of time pulled us in different directions. Our conversations grew sparse, and the spaces between our meetings expanded until they became chasms. We never had a dramatic goodbye, instead, we drifted apart like leaves on a stream, carried by currents beyond our control. Now, as I sit here, the taste of wine lingering on my lips, I find myself revisiting those memories. They come unbidden, like old friends dropping by for a visit. Do you ever find yourself reminiscing about someone, wondering where they are and if they ever think of you? I raise my glass to the past, to the moments that shaped us, and to the whispers of the heart that still echo in the quiet corners of our souls. Here's to stories left unfinished and to the hope that, perhaps, some chapters are meant to be revisited. You know, memories have a peculiar way of resurfacing, especially when the night is quiet and the wine is warm. They tiptoe back into your mind, uninvited yet familiar, like old songs playing softly in the background. After he drifted out of my life, I tried to fill the void with distractions. Work became my refuge, and the bustling city streets offered a semblance of anonymity. But no matter how busy I kept myself, there were moments brief, fleeting when his absence was palpable. I remember walking past a little bookstore one afternoon, the kind with creaky wooden floors and the scent of aged paper. It reminded me of the time we spent hours browsing through shelves, sharing our favorite authors and discovering new ones together. He had a penchant for poetry, especially the kind that spoke of longing and love lost. I, on the other hand, gravitated towards stories of resilience and redemption. Funny how opposites can find common ground, isn't it? One evening, months after our last encounter, I found myself back at the bar where we first met. The ambience was unchanged, the same dim lighting, the same soft jazz melodies. I sat at our usual spot, half expecting him to walk through the door, flash that familiar smile, and sit beside me. But the door remained closed, and the seat beside me stayed empty. Do you ever revisit places from your past, hoping to relieve a moment, even if just for a second? It's a bittersweet endeavor, filled with both comfort and heartache. As I sipped my drink, I thought about reaching out to him. Perhaps a simple message, a note to say I was thinking of him. But fear held me back, the fear of disrupting whatever peace he had found, the fear of reopening wounds that had just begun to heal. Instead, I penned letters I never sent, pouring my thoughts onto paper, hoping that by articulating my feelings, I could find closure. Each letter was a cathartic release, a step towards understanding and acceptance. Time, they say, heals all wounds. But I believe it's not just time, it's reflection, understanding, and the courage to confront our emotions. It's about acknowledging the impact someone had on our lives, even if their role was temporary. Now, as I sit here, sharing this with you, I realize that some stories don't have clear endings. They're open-ended, with chapters that might remain unwritten. And that's okay. Because sometimes, the beauty lies in the journey, not the destination. You know, it's funny how certain scents can transport you back in time. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee, the faint hint of his cologne, or even the musty pages of an old book. They all have the power to resurrect memories long buried. There was this little cafe we used to frequent. Tucked away in a quiet alley, it was our secret haven. The owner, a jovial old man with a penchant for classical music, always greeted us with a warm smile. We'd spend hours there, lost in conversation, oblivious to the world around us. One rainy afternoon, as we sat by the window watching droplets race down the glass, he turned to me and said, "Do you think souls meet for a reason?" I looked into his eyes, searching for the depth behind his question. "Perhaps," I replied, "or maybe they're just drawn to each other, like magnets." Have you ever felt that pull, that inexplicable connection with someone, as if the universe conspired to bring you together? Our bond deepened with each passing day. We'd share our dreams, our fears, and even our silent moments. There was comfort in our togetherness, a sense of belonging that neither of us had felt before. But as with all things, change was inevitable. He received a job offer in another city, an opportunity too good to pass up. We discussed it endlessly, weighing the pros and cons, trying to envision a future where distance wouldn't be a barrier. In the end, we decided to part ways, hoping that time and space would be kind to us. The farewell was bittersweet, filled with promises to stay in touch and visits planned. But life, with its unpredictable twists, had other plans. Our calls became infrequent, messages sporadic. The distance, both physical and emotional, grew. And one day, without realizing it, we stopped reaching out. Do you know that feeling when someone slowly fades from your life, leaving behind only memories and what-ifs? Now, as I sit here, the soft glow of the candle casting shadows on the table, I find solace in reminiscing. The pain has dulled, replaced by a gentle ache and a smile that tugs at the corners of my lips. Life moves on, but the heart remembers. You know, sometimes I wonder if the universe has a peculiar sense of humor. Just when you think you've moved on, it throws a curveball that leaves you questioning everything. It was a crisp autumn morning when I received a letter. Not an email or a text, but an actual handwritten letter, the kind that carries the scent of nostalgia. The envelope was unassuming, yet my heart raced as I recognized the familiar handwriting. With trembling hands, I opened it. His words spilled onto the page, raw and heartfelt. He spoke of missed opportunities, of regrets, and of memories that refused to fade. He wrote about the cafe, the bookstore, and the countless moments that had etched themselves into his soul. Have you ever received something that made your heart skip a beat, that moment when the past collides with the present, leaving you breathless? He mentioned a box he had kept, a collection of mementos from our time together. Photographs, ticket stubs, and even the pressed flower I had given him on our first anniversary. He confessed that he often revisited these items, each one a portal to a time when we were inseparable. As I read his words, a whirlwind of emotions engulfed me. Part of me was elated, while another part was apprehensive. Could we rekindle what we once had, or had too much time passed? I decided to write back. My letter was a tapestry of emotions: gratitude, longing, and cautious hope. I shared my own memories, the moments that had stayed with me, and the dreams I still held close. Do you believe in second chances, in the idea that love, once lost, can be found again? Weeks passed, and our correspondence continued. Each letter peeled back layers of our past, revealing wounds that had never truly healed. Through our words, we began to understand each other anew, finding solace in shared vulnerability. Now, as I sit here, the candlelight dancing on the table, I find myself hopeful. Hopeful that perhaps, just perhaps, the universe isn't done with our story yet. You know, life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. Just when I thought our story had reached its final chapter, a new page turned. It was a chilly evening, the kind that makes you crave warmth and familiarity. I was walking home, lost in thought, when I heard someone call my name. I turned around, and there he was, standing under the streetlight, his breath visible in the cold air. We stood there, eyes locked, as if time had paused just for us. He took a step closer, and without a word, handed me a small, worn-out notebook. "I've been writing," he said softly. "About us. Have you ever received something so personal, so intimate, that it felt like holding a piece of someone's soul?" I took the notebook home and spent the night reading his words. Each page was a reflection of our journey, the highs, the lows, the moments we cherished, and the ones we wished we could forget. His vulnerability bled through the ink, and I felt a renewed connection, as if our hearts were speaking the same language once more. The next day, I invited him over. We sat by the fireplace, sipping wine and sharing stories. Laughter filled the room, and for the first time in a long while, everything felt right. Do you believe in rekindling old flames, in the idea that love, once lost, can find its way back? As the night wore on, we talked about the future. We acknowledged our past mistakes and promised to communicate better, to be more present, and to cherish each moment. Now, as I sit here, reflecting on our reunion, I feel a sense of peace. Our journey hasn't been perfect, but it's ours. And sometimes, that's all that matters. You know, it's strange how life circles back, bringing us to places we thought we'd left behind. After our reunion, we decided to revisit the cafe where it all began. The familiar scent of coffee beans and the soft hum of conversation enveloped us, evoking memories of our early days. We sat at our old table, the one by the window, watching the world go by. It felt surreal, as if no time had passed, yet everything had changed. We talked for hours, sharing stories of our time apart, the lessons we'd learned, and the people we'd become. Have you ever felt like you're meeting someone for the first time, even though you've known them for years? As we sipped our drinks, He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box. My heart skipped a beat. He opened it to reveal a delicate necklace, a pendant shaped like a heart entwined with an infinity symbol. "I saw this and thought of us," he said softly. "Our love, timeless and enduring." Tears welled up in my eyes as he fastened the necklace around my neck. It was a symbol of our journey, the trials we'd faced, and the love that had withstood the test of time. We spent the rest of the day strolling through the city, hand in hand, rediscovering old haunts and creating new memories. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over everything, as if the universe itself was celebrating our reunion. Do you believe in destiny, that some connections are meant to be, no matter the obstacles? That night, as we lay together, I felt a profound sense of peace. Our love story, filled with twists and turns, had come full circle. And as I drifted off to sleep, his arms wrapped around me, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. You know, it's funny how certain songs can transport you back in time. The other day, I heard that tune we used to dance to in the living room, barefoot and carefree. It instantly brought back memories of those quiet evenings, just the two of us, lost in our own world. I remember how he'd twirl me around, his laughter echoing through the room, making me feel like the most cherished person on earth. Those moments were simple, yet they held a kind of magic that's hard to describe. Have you ever had a memory so vivid that it feels like you're reliving it? As the song played, I closed my eyes and let the melody wash over me. It was as if he was right there, holding me close, whispering sweet nothings into my ear. The warmth of those memories enveloped me, bringing both comfort and a tinge of longing. Later that evening, I found myself flipping through our old photo albums. Each picture told a story, a snapshot of our journey together. There was the one from our trip to the countryside, where we got caught in the rain and laughed like children. Or the one from our anniversary dinner, where he surprised me with that necklace I still wear. Do you ever look back at old photos and feel a rush of emotions? As I turned the pages, I realized how much we've grown, both individually and as a couple. We've faced challenges, weathered storms, and yet, our bond remains unbreakable. It's in these reflections that I find strength and gratitude. Now, as I sit here, sipping my wine and reminiscing, I feel a sense of peace. Our love story, with all its twists and turns, is uniquely ours. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. You know, it's strange how certain places can hold so many memories. I found myself walking through the old park where we used to spend our Sundays. The benches, the trees, even the little pond all seemed to whisper stories of our past. I sat on our favorite bench, the one under the big oak tree. The rustling leaves above sounded like a gentle lullaby, and I could almost hear his laughter mingling with the breeze. It was as if time had folded, bringing the past into the present. Have you ever felt like the world around you is echoing your memories? As I sat there, a young couple walked by, hand in hand, their faces glowing with the kind of love that's just beginning. It made me smile, reminding me of our early days, the excitement, the discovery, the endless conversations that stretched into the night. Later, I wandered into the little bookstore nearby. The scent of old pages and the quiet ambience wrapped around me like a comforting blanket. I browsed through the shelves, picking up a book of poetry we once read together. Flipping through its pages, I found a note tucked inside a poem he had written for me, long forgotten. Do you believe that the universe leaves breadcrumbs, guiding us back to moments we need to revisit? Holding that note, I felt a surge of emotions: nostalgia, love, a touch of sadness. But above all, gratitude. Gratitude for a love that had touched my soul, for memories that continued to warm my heart, and for the journey that had brought me to this moment. Now, as I sit here, the evening sun casting golden hues across the room, I feel a sense of serenity. Our story, with all its twists and turns, has been a tapestry of love, growth, and resilience. You know, sometimes the most unexpected moments leave the deepest impressions. One evening, as we sat on the balcony, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of blooming jasmine, he turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice soft, "about the little things that make our life together so special." I looked at him, curiosity piqued. "Like what?" I asked, sipping my wine. He smiled, eyes reflecting the twinkling stars above. "Like the way you hum when you're cooking, or how you always know when I need a hug, even before I realize it myself. Have you ever had someone notice the smallest details about you, making you feel seen in a way that's both comforting and profound?" His words touched me deeply. It wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic declarations, it was about the quiet, consistent presence we offered each other. The shared glances, the inside jokes, the silent support during challenging times. That night, we decided to start a new tradition. Every evening, before bed, we'd share one thing we appreciated about each other that day. It became a cherished ritual, a way to stay connected and express gratitude. Do you have any rituals or habits that strengthen your relationships? As days turned into weeks, this practice brought us even closer. It reminded us to pause, to reflect, to be present with one another even in the chaos of daily life. Sometimes, it was something simple, like, "I appreciated the way you made me tea this morning," and other times, it was deeper: "I'm grateful you listened when I was overwhelmed." It created this space between us, sacred and quiet, where we could just be. No need for perfection, no expectations, just love, showing up in the tiniest ways. You know what I mean. As I sip my drink now, it's got that perfect warmth. I can almost hear his voice saying, "Tell me one thing you loved today." And I'd always pause, smile, and find something. It became this beautiful habit, one I still carry with me, even now, even alone. The funny thing is, it wasn't always like this. In the beginning, we clashed a lot. We were both strong-willed, passionate, stubborn, really. But somehow, we always came back to each other. Like gravity. No matter how far we drifted in thought or mood, there was this invisible pull. Do you believe some people are just meant to orbit each other? One of my favorite nights I remember it so clearly. We were dancing in the kitchen. No music playing, just the sound of rain against the windows. I'd had a little too much wine, like now, and I spilled a little on the floor. He laughed, scooped me up, and we spun around like fools. I swear, those are the moments I hold closest. Not the big milestones. The small, unguarded seconds where everything felt completely real. Do you have any of those tucked away in your heart, moments you never planned, but never forgot? I think, those are the moments that build a life. Not the vacations or celebrations, but the quiet Tuesday nights, the sleepy conversations at 2 a.m., the shared glances when words just aren't needed. I remember once, he got home late after a long day, completely drained. He didn't say much, just walked over, rested his head on my shoulder, and exhaled. That sigh, it said everything. And I just held him. No questions, no chatter. Just silence and presence. You ever been someone's safe place or had someone be that for you? That night, we didn't even eat dinner. We just lay on the couch, the soft hum of the city outside, the clinking of ice in our glasses, and the weight of knowing, this is enough. We are enough. There were also moments of doubt, of course. Times when I wasn't sure we'd make it. Life pulled us in different directions, tested our patience, shook our foundation. And yet, somehow, we always found our way back to that quiet understanding. I used to watch him when he didn't know I was looking. The way his brow furrowed when he read, or the little smirk he wore when he was trying not to laugh. I memorized those things like poems. They were my verses, my songs. You ever fall in love with someone's habits, the tiny, unremarkable things that feel like home? Sometimes, I wonder if he still thinks of me. If he sits somewhere now, with a drink in his hand, letting memory wrap around him like smoke. Maybe. Or maybe he's moved on. But me, I'm still here, with this glass, this glow, and the echoes of us dancing softly in the corners of my mind. It's strange, isn't it, how some memories don't fade, they just settle, like dust on the shelves of your soul. You don't see them every day, but when you do, they shimmer in the dim light of recollection. There's one night I think about often. We were sitting under a threadbare blanket on the rooftop, just the two of us, and a bottle of red wine that was way too expensive for our budget. We talked about dreams, fears, the places we wanted to see. He said he wanted to grow old in a house by the sea, and I laughed because I always pictured a cabin in the woods. Then we'll find a forest near the ocean, he said. You ever try to stitch two dreams together like that? It didn't always work. We weren't perfect. But we tried. God, we tried so hard. And maybe that's what matters most. Not whether it lasted, but that we gave it everything we had, right? I keep thinking about the way he'd look at me when I was rambling about some book I'd read. His eyes would soften, not because he understood every word, but because he loved the way I lit up. That kind of listening, it's rare. It's gold. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I imagine those nights. The softness of his voice. The feel of his hand resting lazily on mine. The laughter, the long pauses, the just one more glass that turned into three. And I wonder, if he walked in right now, sat across from me at this bar, what would we say? Would we laugh, cry, sit in silence and let the years melt away in a single gaze? Or maybe we'd just toast to the life we once shared, and all the versions of ourselves that existed within it. What do you think? Would you take that drink, if the past walked in tonight? You know, sometimes I think love never really leaves. It just changes form. Like vapor rising from a glass, it becomes part of the air you breathe, always around you, even if you can't see it anymore. I still talk to him sometimes, in my head. Especially on nights like this, when the bar's quiet and the world feels slow. I'll swirl the wine in my glass, watch the candlelight flicker, and whisper, "You'd laugh at me for ordering this, wouldn't you? He always said I had terrible taste in cocktails. But he'd drink them anyway, just to see me smile. Have you ever let someone change you, even in the smallest ways, not because they asked, but because loving them made you softer, kinder, more aware of your own edges? That's what he did. He softened me. Before him, I wore my independence like armor. I thought needing someone was weakness. But he showed me that vulnerability isn't the same as fragility. I remember, one morning, I woke up from a nightmare. It wasn't anything dramatic, just one of those dreams that leaves your chest heavy and your mood gray. I tried to brush it off, but he noticed. Always did. He didn't ask. Just pulled me close, rested his hand on my back, and whispered, "You're safe." And somehow, in that moment, I believed it. Funny how the right words, at the right time, can anchor you. Do you have someone who does that for you, or maybe, someone you did that for? That's what I miss most. Not the grand declarations or the heated arguments or even the passion, no, it's the quiet safety. The way his presence wrapped around me like a warm coat on a rainy day. Sometimes, I still catch myself reaching for my phone, to tell him something funny I saw, or a memory that suddenly surfaced out of nowhere. But then, reality settles in like dust, and I remember he's no longer on the other end. Do you ever feel that tug, that instinct to share something with someone who's gone? It's not sadness, not exactly. More like a hollow echo. A soft ache you carry around like a favorite song from a long time ago. One you know by heart, but rarely play, because it hits too deep. One winter, we got snowed in together. Just the two of us, a few candles, and an old record player. I cooked a terrible dinner, burned the pasta, forgot the salt, but he ate every bite like it was a feast. Then we danced barefoot in the living room, tipsy and laughing, to a song neither of us knew the name of. That night felt suspended in time. You ever have a moment like that, one that felt so perfect, so alive, it made you want to freeze it forever? We never really talked about forever. Maybe that was our mistake. Or maybe it was our strength. We lived in the now, soaked in it, loved like the next sunrise wasn't promised. Sometimes I wonder, if we'd made promises, would it have lasted, or would the weight of them have broken what we had? There's beauty in the impermanent, isn't there, like a candle that burns brighter because it knows its flame won't last. Maybe that was us. A beautiful, burning moment in time. And now, I sit here, with this same candlelight, this same soft jazz playing in the background, and I let those memories wash over me like a warm tide. Because even if he's not here, the love was real. The story was real. And that's enough, don't you think? You know, I used to think closure meant having all the answers. Like, one final conversation that wraps everything up with a tidy little bow. But life doesn't work that way, does it? Sometimes, closure is just learning to live with the silence. He left in autumn. Isn't that poetic, all the leaves falling, the sky growing gray, it mirrored exactly how I felt inside. He said we needed space, time to figure things out. I nodded, trying to look brave, but my heart felt like it was splintering into 1,000 quiet pieces. We never had that big goodbye moment. No shouting, no tears on the pavement. Just distance. One day his toothbrush was gone. Then his shirts. Then the smell of him on the pillow faded, and all that was left was the hum of absence. I kept checking my messages for weeks. Waiting. Hoping. You ever do that? Watch your phone light up and feel that rush of possibility, only to find it's just a delivery notification or some app reminding you to drink water. It's silly, I know. But heartbreak makes fools of us all. I started writing letters to him that I never sent. Pages filled with all the things I couldn't say. I miss the way you looked at me when I wasn't watching. I'm sorry for all the times I pushed you away when you just wanted to help. I still sleep on my side of the bed. It helped. A little. Like emptying pockets full of stones one at a time. And slowly, the weight began to lift. But he's still there, you know, in the corners of songs, in the smell of rain, in the way I hesitate before ordering his favorite drink. Some people never really leave. They just live differently inside you. So, I raise this glass not to the man who left, but to the man who once stayed. Who once loved me so deeply, I can still feel echoes of it in my bones. Here's to him. Here's to the silence that followed. And here's to the woman I've become because of it. You know what's strange sometimes? I miss the arguments. Not the shouting, not the hurt, but the passion. The fire behind the words. The way he'd run his hands through his hair when he was frustrated, pacing the room like a caged storm, and then suddenly he'd stop, look at me with those tired eyes, and say, "I just want us to be okay." We were messy. Imperfect. But we cared so damn much. Have you ever loved someone so fiercely it scared you? There were nights we stayed up until dawn, not because we were fighting, but because we couldn't stop talking. About dreams. Regrets. Childhood stories. Random, silly things like what superpower we'd want if we could have one. His answer: time travel. Mine mind reading. We laughed, said we'd probably drive each other crazy with those powers. But real love, it isn't in the grand gestures. It's in the little things. Like the way he used to warm up my side of the bed in winter before I got in. Or how he'd memorize the names of my favorite authors just to surprise me with a book he thought I'd like. Or how, whenever I was overwhelmed, he'd place a hand on my chest and say, "Breathe. I've got you." God, I miss that. You know, people tell you that time heals. But they don't say how. They don't say that healing means learning to live with a phantom hand on your chest, a memory that lingers like smoke after a fire. But tonight, as I sit here glass in hand, heart a little softer, I don't feel broken. Just beautifully haunted. And maybe, just maybe, that's a kind of healing too. There's this little bar on the corner of Maple and 3rd, tiny place, barely fits 20 people. Dim lights, cracked leather booths, and a jukebox that only plays old love songs. That was our spot. Every Friday night, without fail, we'd go there. Even if we were tired. Even if we had work early. It was our ritual. Our escape from the world. We had a booth in the back, by the window. He always ordered whiskey neat. I'd get a glass of red, unless I was feeling bold, then it was tequila, and he'd raise an eyebrow like he was both amused and concerned. One night, we got caught in the rain walking there. We were drenched, laughing, slipping on the sidewalk. I remember standing under the awning, soaked to the bone, and him brushing wet hair from my face, saying, "You look like a dream I never knew I had." That line, ugh, it was so cheesy. But the way he said it, like he meant every syllable, it melted me. That bar closed down last year. I walked past it recently, boarded up windows, faded sign barely hanging on. And it hit me harder than I expected. Like another piece of us was gone. Not just a building, but a chapter. You ever have a place that holds your memories like a second home? Funny how places do that. Absorb your laughter, your whispers, your tears. They become keepers of your story. Sometimes I wish I could go back there. Just once. Sit in that booth, order his drink, and pretend he's about to walk in any second, shaking the rain from his coat and smiling that crooked smile. But life moves on, doesn't it? Still, some nights, when the air smells like wet pavement and old songs hum in the distance, I swear I can feel him sitting beside me again. And in those moments, I smile. Because memories, real ones, they never truly fade. You know, there's something about music that just sticks to the soul. Every relationship has a soundtrack, doesn't it? Ours was all soft jazz, moody blues, and the occasional slow-burning rock ballad. He had this old vinyl collection, scratched, dusty, imperfect, like us. On Sundays, we'd dance in the living room. No rhythm, no choreography. Just bare feet on hardwood floors, wine on our breath, and the sound of Nina Simone wrapping around us like silk. He'd hum along, always off-key, always with that boyish grin. And I'd pretend to roll my eyes, but truthfully I loved it. Loved the way he made even silence feel like music. I tried listening to those records after he left. I really did. But it hurt. It felt like opening a letter you wrote to yourself during a happier time. Like rereading a dream you had to wake up from. One night, though, after a particularly long, lonely day, I poured myself a drink, lit a candle, and placed the needle on that old, worn-out vinyl. The crackle before the music started. It was like he was whispering, "It's okay. You can remember me now." I sat there, eyes closed, letting the notes wash over me. And for a few minutes, I danced again. Alone, yes. But not lonely. Because the music carried him back to me. It's strange, the way songs can time travel. Now, I keep a playlist. Not of the sad songs, no. But the ones that remind me of who we were at our best. The laughter, the warmth, the quiet mornings. And when I need to feel that again, I hit play. And just like that, he's here. Do you ever find yourself talking to someone who's no longer there? Not in a ghostly, spooky way, no. More like, in your mind, in those quiet moments when your thoughts drift before sleep. I still do that with him. When something good happens, I imagine telling him. When something hurts, I picture his hand over mine, his voice low and steady, saying, "You're stronger than you think." There's comfort in that. Even if it's all in my head. I remember this one night, it was late, past midnight. I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, heart heavy with 100 things. So I grabbed my coat, left the apartment, and walked to the hill overlooking the city. It was freezing. My breath hung in the air like fog. But I needed the silence, the space. And guess who showed up? No, not literally. But his memory, his warmth, his voice, like a soft echo in the back of my mind, whenever the world feels too loud, find the quiet inside you. I sat there, on a cold bench, shivering and smiling through tears. That's the thing about deep love, it becomes a part of you. Not always visible, but always there. Like a melody beneath your skin. You don't really move on. You move with it. Carrying the echoes, the lessons, the softness. Sometimes it's heavy. Other times, it lifts you. And on nights like this, when I sit with a drink and a heart full of quiet, I let him visit. Just for a little while. Not to mourn, but to remember. And in those moments, I feel whole. You know, the strangest thing happens when you're alone for a while. You start getting comfortable with yourself. Not just the kind of comfort that comes from being by yourself, but the deep, peaceful kind that settles in your bones. The kind that says, I'm okay. I'm enough, just as I am. But even so, I can't help but wonder sometimes. Do you ever wish things had gone differently, that maybe, just maybe, you could go back and change one moment, one decision? I catch myself thinking about that, about the choices we made. About the times I could be been braver, the times I could be stayed, instead of running. Funny thing is, I always thought love was supposed to be this grand thing, right? But it's not. It's messy. It's imperfect. Sometimes it feels more like a puzzle that you're trying to fit together while someone's tugging at the pieces from the other side. But that's okay. I've learned that now. Love doesn't have to be perfect. It's just about showing up. Even when it's hard. Even when you don't have the right words. Even when you're unsure. I remember when we went to that little cabin upstate. It was winter. Snow everywhere. You know, the kind of snow that blankets the world in silence. We sat by the fire, sipping whiskey, staring into the flames. And there was this moment when we both stopped talking. Just looked at each other. Not with words, but with understanding. I didn't need him to say I love you that night. I knew. He knew. And that was enough. But I've learned something else too. Sometimes, even when you have that understanding, you have to let go. Because holding on too tight can suffocate what was beautiful in the first place. So, here I am. Not holding on. Not letting go completely, either. Just existing. With the memories. With the love that still lives inside me. The love that has no expiration date. And I'll keep it with me, like a keepsake tucked in a drawer. Not for nostalgia. Not for pain. But because it's part of who I am now. It shaped me. And for that, I'll always be grateful. You know, I've learned to stop trying to figure everything out. Sometimes you don't have to understand every twist and turn. Sometimes, it's enough just to be, and let the moments come and go. And tonight, well, tonight I'll just sit here, sipping my drink, letting the quiet settle in. And remember, we don't always need to have the answers. Sometimes, it's enough to just let the heart whisper its own truths. There was this one time, we argued for hours over something so silly, I can't even remember what it was now. Isn't that always the way? The loudest fights come from the quietest fears. I remember the way he stood there, hands in his pockets, jaw tight like he was holding back everything he really wanted to say. And me, I was pacing the room, too proud to admit I just wanted him to hold me. God, I wish I had just said it. Just walked over and wrapped my arms around him, let all the tension melt away. But no, pride is a funny thing. It dresses up like strength but feels a lot like loneliness when the night comes. After the door closed behind him that evening, I sat in the dark for hours. No music. No phone. Just the hum of the fridge and the ache in my chest. And you know what I kept thinking? Why is it so hard to just be soft with each other? Why do we build walls when all we want is to be let in? Later, when he came back, he did come back, we didn't say sorry right away. We just sat on the couch, side by side, both staring at the same spot on the floor. And then, he reached out, just a pinky finger brushing mine. That was enough. Sometimes it's not the grand gestures, not the flowers, or the speeches, or the promises whispered in candlelight. Sometimes it's just a touch. A glance. The silence between two people who still choose each other, even after the storm. We didn't solve everything that night. But we chose to stay. To keep trying. To keep showing up, even when the words felt hard to find. And that, I think, was the real kind of love. Messy. Human. But real. Now, when I think of him, I try not to remember the arguments. I remember the pinky touch. The quiet understanding. The way we always found our way back, even if the map was torn. That's what lingers, long after the voices fade. The choosing. Over and over again. You ever feel like your memories are little rooms in a house you no longer live in? Sometimes I walk through them in my mind quietly, barefoot, like I might disturb something if I'm too loud. There's one room I visit more than the others. The one where he and I danced in the kitchen. It was late, maybe 2 a.m., and we were both a little drunk, cheap wine and laughter swirling around the flickering lights. The music was low, some old jazz record he loved. I can still hear the trumpet, soft and slow, like it was humming just for us. And there we were, barefoot on the cold tile, swaying like we had all the time in the world. He spun me around and dipped me like we were in a movie, and I laughed so hard I nearly fell. But he caught me. Always did. That night, there was no future, no past. Just the warmth of his hands on my waist, his forehead against mine, and the hush of everything else falling away. It's strange. I don't remember what we said. Maybe we didn't say anything at all. Maybe we didn't need to. Sometimes the heart speaks loudest in silence. I stayed up all night after he fell asleep on the couch, just watching him breathe. Tracing the lines of his face in the glow of the street lamp through the window. Trying to memorize him like I knew the moment wouldn't last forever. And I was right, wasn't I? Moments, they never do. But what stays is the feeling. The scent of his cologne lingering in my scarf. The taste of red wine on my lips. The echo of laughter against those kitchen walls. I keep those pieces with me. Like sea glass once sharp, now worn soft by time and tide. And every now and then, when the night gets quiet enough and my drink sits untouched, I close my eyes and step into that kitchen again. The music plays. We dance. And for a few sweet minutes, I'm home. There's something about rainy nights that always gets to me. The sound of it tapping gently against the windows, the way the world seems to slow down, blur at the edges like an old photograph. On nights like that, I used to curl up on the couch, blanket wrapped around me, glass of bourbon in hand, and wait for his key in the door. He was never on time. Always running late, always a bit scattered. But he brought with him this chaos I somehow grew addicted to. You know that kind of person, the one who walks into a room and shifts the air without even trying. Yeah, he was that. One night, it was pouring. The kind of rain that soaks you through in seconds. I was half asleep, the TV still humming some black and white movie. Then I heard that familiar jingle of his keys. And there he was, dripping wet, hair plastered to his forehead, shivering, smiling. He didn't say anything. Just dropped his bag, kicked off his boots, and walked straight over to me. And kissed me. Not the kind of kiss you see in movies. Not dramatic or hungry. Just warm. Quiet. Real. We didn't talk much that night. Just laid there, limbs tangled, the rain as our soundtrack. And in the dark, I whispered, "Promise me we'll always find our way back." He kissed my temple and said, "Always. But life, it's funny, it doesn't always listen to our promises." We didn't break up in a blaze. No slammed doors, no harsh words. Just distance. Silent, creeping distance that grows louder with every unsaid word. And one day, the rain came again. But there was no key in the door. Just me. The bourbon. And the echo of a promise that was too soft to hold. Still, on rainy nights like this, I like to think he remembers. I like to imagine he hears the rain and thinks of me too. Maybe he smiles. Maybe he even whispers, "Always." Even if only to the silence. You ever have one of those moments where you realize something's over, but your heart hasn't quite caught up yet? That was me, sitting alone at our favorite cafe. You know the kind, dim lights, creaky wooden chairs, the scent of old books and fresh espresso lingering in the air. We used to come there every Sunday, no matter what. He'd always order the same thing: black coffee, no sugar, and a slice of lemon cake. Said the bitterness of the coffee and the tartness of the cake balanced each other out. Funny, I used to tease him that it sounded like a metaphor for us. That day, I ordered his usual. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. Or hope. Probably both. The waitress, a sweet girl with freckles and tired eyes, smiled at me like she knew. Like she'd seen this story before. Maybe she had. The coffee came. The cake, too. But the chair across from me stayed empty. And I sat there, hands wrapped around that warm mug, pretending for just a moment that he was running late. That he'd walk in, grin that crooked grin, and say, "You missed me." But minutes ticked by. The coffee cooled. The cake crumbled. And reality sat down beside me like an old friend, heavy and silent. I stared at that empty chair so long it started to feel like it belonged more than he ever did. Isn't that wild how absence can become its own kind of presence? I think the hardest part wasn't the goodbye. It was all the almosts. All the what ifs and if onlys. All the damn unfinished sentences. We could be been something more, maybe. Or maybe we were just a lesson in disguise. A reminder that not all beautiful things are meant to stay. Still, I drank the coffee. ate the cake, paid the bill, and as I walked out into the dusk, I whispered to the wind, "Goodbye, love. And thank you, for the Sundays." There was this old hotel we used to sneak away to. It wasn't fancy creaky floorboards, peeling wallpaper, a bed that groaned louder than our laughter, but God, it felt like a world of our own. Just the two of us, hiding away from reality, pretending we had all the time we needed. He'd always light one of those cinnamon-scented candles. Said it reminded him of autumn, of warmth. And then he'd sit by the window, shirt half unbuttoned, guitar resting on his knee, fingers moving like the chords were just part of his skin. He didn't talk much during those stays. But he sang low, slow, smoky tunes that wrapped around my heart like soft velvet. Sometimes I didn't understand the words. Didn't need to. The way he looked at me while he played, that said everything. One night, after he finished a song I'd never heard before, he looked up and whispered, "If I write enough songs about you, maybe you'll stay in love with me a little longer." That broke something in me. Because even then, I knew we were running on borrowed time. You ever love someone so much it aches, but you also feel it slipping away in every kiss, every silence? I held his hand that night like it was the last lifeline between us. And maybe, in some quiet way, it was. We didn't go back to that hotel after that. Life pulled us in opposite directions quietly, gently, like waves tugging two boats away from each other. But sometimes, I'll walk past a busker on the street playing a song in the same key he used to sing in. And I'll swear I can smell cinnamon on the air. Maybe it's just my mind playing tricks. Or maybe some places, some songs, some people, they never really leave us. They just wait in the quiet corners of our memories, humming their songs, hoping we'll visit now and then. You know what I miss the most? The in-betweens. Not the big romantic gestures or the grand declarations, no. I miss the little pauses. The in-between moments that stitched our days together like quiet threads. Like the way he used to brush his fingers through my hair while I read. Or how he'd hum when he was thinking, not a song, just a soft, distracted sound, like his mind was wandering and he was letting it. Or those nights when we'd lie in bed, facing each other in the dark, not saying a word, just listening to each other breathe. It was in those spaces, those silences, that I felt most seen. He didn't try to fix me. Didn't rush to fill the quiet. He just existed next to me. And that was enough. One evening, I remember we were sitting on the balcony, watching the sun melt into the city skyline. I had a glass of red wine, he had his usual scotch. And neither of us spoke for a good 20 minutes. Then, without turning his head, he said, "This right here, this is what peace feels like." I didn't reply. Just reached for his hand. He squeezed mine gently once. That was all. Funny how such a small moment can feel like an eternity in your heart. But peace, like all beautiful things, tends to be fleeting. The day he left, there was no fight. No drama. Just a quiet understanding, like two souls looking at each other and knowing they'd reached the end of a page. We hugged. He kissed my forehead. And I watched him walk away. No tears. Not then. They came later in the in-betweens. While folding laundry. While brushing my teeth. While hearing a song on the radio that had no business sounding so familiar. Love doesn't always leave with thunder. Sometimes, it slips out the back door during the quietest moment of the day, and all you're left with is silence. The kind that once brought peace, and now feels a little too loud. There's a little bar down on 9th Street, barely visible from the road. You'd probably miss it if you weren't looking for it. Just a rusted sign, a cracked red door, and the soft hum of jazz leaking out into the night air. That's where I go now, when the memories get too loud. We used to come here, you know him and me. Slipped into the same corner booth, tucked away beneath the flickering wall sconce. We'd sit closed legs brushing, drinks sweating in our hands, like we were the only two people the world forgot to check on. He loved that place. Said the whiskey tasted more honest there. He wasn't wrong. Something about the way the bartender never asked questions, just poured slow and steady, it gave our silence room to breathe. We weren't always falling apart. There were nights, golden ones, when we laughed so hard I spilled my drink on his shirt, and he didn't even flinch. Just smiled, eyes shining, and pulled me in closer. But even in the best moments, there was always that quiet edge. Like we both knew the clock was ticking, but neither of us wanted to be the one to say it out loud. I remember once, I asked him, "Do you think we're more in love with the idea of us than we are with the real thing?" He didn't answer right away. Just took a sip, leaned back, and said, "Does it matter if the feeling's real, even if it's borrowed?" God, that hit me hard. Because maybe he was right. Maybe some loves aren't built to last, just to be felt, deeply and fleetingly, like a song that wrecks you even though you've only heard it once. Now when I go to that bar, I sit in our booth alone. Order his drink. Mine too. Sometimes I talk to him like he's still there, just out of sight, just a whisper away. And I tell him about my day, about how things are changing, about how I still dream in the color of his laugh. You ever miss someone so much, you keep their ghost company? Yeah, me too. Some nights, I still wear his shirt. You know, the one soft cotton, faded navy, a tiny rip near the collar that he never bothered to fix. It used to hang loose on me, swallowing me whole. Now, somehow, it fits. Isn't that strange? How time reshapes us, slowly, quietly, until we find ourselves fitting into spaces we once only borrowed. I pour myself a glass of wine, the dry red he could never stand, and I curl up by the window, that shirt wrapped around me like a second skin. And then, like clockwork, the memories knock on the door of my mind. He never liked rainy days. Said they made him restless. But I loved them, still do. The sound of water tapping against glass, the way the world softens at the edges, it always felt like the perfect excuse to stay still. Once, during a storm, we stayed in bed all day. Didn't he talk much? Didn't he need to? Just drifted in and out of sleep, fingers tracing invisible lines across each other's skin. He whispered stories into the nape of my neck. Silly things, childhood memories, dreams he never chased, people he missed but would never admit to. And then he said, barely audible, "I don't know how to be loved without feeling like I'll break it." I turned to him, touched his cheek, and whispered back, "Then maybe let me hold the pieces, if they fall." But some people would rather scatter than risk shattering in your hands. I've come to accept that now. Doesn't make the ache any softer, but it makes it familiar. And you know what, there's a strange kind of comfort in familiar pain. Like an old song you hum without realizing. Or a street you walk just because your feet remember the way. So here I am, in his shirt, with my wine, listening to the rain tell stories to the dark. And in the quiet, I swear I can still feel his breath on my shoulder. Not real. Just memory. But sometimes, that's enough. I still keep one of his letters, tucked inside a book I never finished, between pages that smell faintly of dust and old dreams. It wasn't even a love letter, not exactly. Just a few scribbled lines on yellowed stationery, left behind after a weekend he spent at my place. Didn't he want to wake you? Coffee's on the stove. You looked peaceful. That was it. But God, you know how sometimes the smallest things echo the loudest. He never said I love you easily. His affection lived in gestures. The way he'd refill my tea without asking. Or the way he'd adjust my scarf when the wind turned sharp. I used to crave more words, more reassurances, more something. But I learned that love, for him, was quiet. And over time, I began to listen differently. One night, we sat in his car outside my apartment. Neither of us reached for the door. Just music playing low, some old blues song that's faded from memory, and the heavy weight of unspoken thoughts between us. I'm not good at staying, he said, fingers tapping the steering wheel. I always leave before things get messy. I looked at him, tired but soft, and said, then maybe let us be messy. He didn't reply. Just reached over, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, and kissed my forehead like a goodbye dressed as something else. And a week later, he left. No fights. No explanations. Just, gone. I found the letter days after. Pressed flat inside that forgotten book. Didn't he want to wake you? He never wanted to wake anything, not the love we had, not the fears we buried, not the truth we kept swallowing. And me, I let him leave. Not because I didn't love him, but because I loved him enough not to cage him. You ever love someone like that? The kind of love that feels like holding your breath, and learning to live with the ache. Yet, I thought so. So tonight, I pour another drink, open that book, and for a little while, I let myself miss him, fully. No shame. No regrets. Just a soft ache, and a letter. You ever wake up and forget they're gone? Just for a second, in that hazy space between sleep and day, you reach across the bed, expecting warmth. Expecting breath. Expecting them. And then just cool sheets. That's the cruelest part, I think. The quiet mornings. No arguments. No slammed doors. Just the absence. Clean and absolute. It's funny, though. I still sleep on my side of the bed. Old habits, I guess. He used to tease me for how I curled up like a cat, burying my face into the pillow. Said I looked like I was hiding from the world. Maybe I was. He never liked small talk. He wanted the raw, the real. We'd stay up for hours long after the bar closed, just unraveling memories like threadbare sweaters. I remember one night, he told me about his first heartbreak. Not with bitterness, but with this quiet reverence, like it still held a sacred corner of his heart. She made me feel seen, he said. But I was too young to know what to do with that. I smiled, tilted my glass, and asked, "And me?" He didn't answer right away. Just leaned back, staring at the ceiling like the answer might be scrawled in the paint. "You terrify me," he finally said. And I laughed. Thought he was joking. But now, I think I understand. Sometimes the people who see us too clearly, they shine a light on the places we try to keep hidden. And not everyone's ready for that. God, I wasn't ready either. But I loved him. I loved his scars, his silences, even his exits. And now, in the silence he left behind, I've learned to sit with the echoes. I pour one last drink for the night. To him. To me. To the spaces between. And as I rest my head on that one warm side of the bed, I whisper, not for anyone else but myself. I hope you're out there, living gently. Because love doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes, it just means hoping they found peace. Sometimes I wonder, if he thinks of me when the nights stretch long and quiet. You know that feeling when the world goes still, and suddenly all the words you never said come rushing back like a flood that waited too long. I imagine him alone in some unfamiliar city, sitting at a bar, tracing the rim of a glass just like I do, eyes lost in thought. Maybe the bartender thinks he's brooding. But I know better. He's remembering. I bet he remembers that weekend we disappeared. No phones. No clocks. Just an old cabin in the woods, a record player, and a bottle of bourbon that warmed more than our skin. We danced, barefoot on creaky floorboards, laughing like kids. He wasn't much of a dancer, but he moved with me anyway, hands on my waist like I was the only thing tethering him to the earth. That night, I whispered, if we could freeze time, would you stay here with me? He paused, mid-sway, and kissed my forehead. That's the problem, he said. Part of me already has. I held on to that for too long like a promise. Like maybe he'd find his way back. But love isn't always a loop. Sometimes it's a line. A beautiful one, that ends. I kept that record, you know. Scratched and worn, like our story. I play it on the loneliest nights. The vinyl crackles like old memories, and suddenly, I'm back there. In his arms. In that cabin. In the moment before we knew we were going to break. And I cry. Not because it hurts not anymore, but because I got to feel something that real. That rare. So if you're out there, love, if you ever sip something sweet and feel a pang you can't explain. Maybe that's me. Loving you, quietly, across time. There was this one night, rainy, soft, and slow, when I asked him what he feared most. We were lying on the couch, his head on my lap, a half-empty glass of red wine balanced on the edge of the coffee table. The windows were fogged from the storm, and the world felt wrapped in a hush, like even the sky was listening. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he traced small circles on my knee with his thumb, as if the answer lived there. And finally, in the kind of voice people use when they're trying not to wake something inside them, he whispered, "Being forgotten." I didn't know what to say. Because I'd forgotten people before. Not on purpose. Life just swept them away. Faces faded. Voices blurred. You move on. You rebuild. But with him, even now, I remember everything. The way he hummed when he cooked. How his fingers twitched slightly when he was thinking. The tiny scar on his jaw he said he got from falling off a swing as a kid, even though I later found out it was from a fight he never talked about. I remember the smell of his cologne, the exact rhythm of his laugh, and how his eyes softened when he looked at me, like I was a lighthouse and he was always trying to find his way back. So no, I haven't forgotten him. And I never will. You know, they say the people we love never really leave. They linger in the spaces between heartbeats, in the corners of familiar songs, in the taste of wine we shared with them. He's there. In all of it. And maybe he remembers me too. Maybe on some quiet night, when the sky cries just like it did back then, he closes his eyes, and sees me smiling through the rain. Maybe that's enough. To not be forgotten. To have existed in someone's heart, fully, even if only for a while. It's strange, the way memory works. You'd think I'd forget the small things first. The way he stirred his drink counterclockwise, or how he always smelled the cork before pouring wine, even if it was from a box. But no. Those little quirks, they're etched into me. Like carvings on old wood. Familiar. Permanent. What fates are the bigger moments? The anniversaries. The arguments. Even the goodbye. Sometimes I try to replay our last night together, but it's like a dream I can't quite hold onto. I see his silhouette at the door, the curve of his shoulders under that worn leather jacket, the hush before the latch clicked shut. And then nothing. But the sound of his laugh when he told me the stupidest jokes. Still crystal clear. Funny. Isn't it? I don't remember why we broke, but I remember how he'd bring me flowers from the street vendors, not because it was a special day, but because the yellow ones looked like your laugh. Who says things like that? He did. And it ruined me, you know, in the best way. He made me expect magic in the mundane. Made me look for poetry in bus rides and romance in burnt toast. So when he left, when the magic went quiet, the world felt dull. I spent months trying to mute the ache. Wine helped. So did long walks at midnight, whispering our old conversations to the stars like maybe they'd echo back. But healing didn't come from forgetting him. It came from remembering myself. The woman who danced barefoot on balconies. Who sang off-key in the shower. Who once made him believe that love was possible, even if only briefly. That woman, she's still here. Still sipping. Still feeling. Still believing in love's return, even if it comes in a different form, through a different door, wearing a different smile. But until then, I raise my glass to him. To what was. And to what still lingers, in the quiet. There's something about rainy nights that make everything feel closer. Closer to the truth. Closer to the memories. Closer to him. I was walking home the other night, you know, drizzle in the air, the city humming softly beneath its breath, and I passed this tiny jazz bar we used to sneak into. God, it's still there. Same scratched up sign, same foggy windows. For a moment, I stopped. Just stood there, soaked, heart fluttering like it was about to meet him again. But of course, he wasn't inside. He's not in the city anymore. He left long ago, physically, emotionally, cosmically, I guess. But tell that to my bones. To my fingers that still twitch when I hear saxophones in the dark. I didn't go in. Not because I didn't want to, oh, I did, but because some ghosts deserve their space. Their silence. That bar belongs to another version of me. One who still believed we could survive anything. You ever feel that strange grief over someone who is still alive? He didn't die. We didn't explode. We just evaporated. Like breath on a mirror. There, and then gone. And yet, I still catch myself pouring 2 glasses. Still hesitate before playing our favorite records, worried I'll hear his voice in the echoes. Healing, they say, isn't linear. I think it's circular. A slow dance with the past. Some nights I lead. Some nights the memories pull me back in. And tonight, well, tonight, I let them. Because sometimes the only way out is through. Through the ache, the longing, the sharp edges of a love that couldn't stay. So I sip. I sigh. I smile. And I tell you this not for pity, no, but because maybe you've felt it too. Maybe you've loved someone who left fingerprints on your soul. And if so, darling, you're not alone. We carry them. Quietly. Beautifully. Always. There was a time I used to write him letters. Never mailed them, of course. Just folded them into the pages of old books, tucked them between dreams and dust. I'd pour everything in: the heartbreak, the gratitude, the memories I didn't know where else to keep. Do you remember that summer in Venice Beach? I'd write. When we danced with strangers in the sand and kissed like the world would end by sunrise. It wasn't just nostalgia. It was survival. A way to remind myself that I had loved that deeply once. That it wasn't a dream. That my heart hadn't made it all up. You ever do that? Talk to someone long after they're gone, not because you expect an answer, but because silence is too loud on its own. I think we all do, in our own way. A friend once told me that some people are just passing chapters meant to teach, not stay. He was my favorite chapter. Even now, when the world is quiet and the wine runs sweet and slow, I hear his voice in my head. Not what he said, but how he made me feel. Like I was sunlight wrapped in skin. Like I was enough. And that's the cruelest part, isn't it? You never forget how someone made you feel. It stays. It lingers. Like perfume on a borrowed coat. But here's the thing I've learned, the most unexpected thing. I don't miss him anymore. I miss us. The version of me that existed when we were together. That wild, open, fearless woman who believed in magic and didn't flinch when someone said forever. She's still here. A little bruised, maybe. A little quieter. But she's sipping her drink tonight. Remembering. Smiling. And whispering into the night, thank you, for the lesson. Because love, even when it leaves you fuller than it found you. And I think that's kind of beautiful, don't you? I don't believe in closure. People talk about it like it's a clean door you can shut, like you can just turn the key and walk away, untouched. But real life, real love, it leaves smudges. Some nights, when I can't sleep, I reread those old letters. Just to see how far I've come. There's one in particular. Folded 4 times. Smudged ink. I must be cried when I wrote it. It says, I don't hate you. I just wish you had stayed long enough to see the version of me that finally understood herself. Isn't that wild? That someone can be both the fire that forges you and the one that almost burned you down. But maybe that's what some loves are meant for. Not forever, just enough time to shape us, to teach us where the soft spots are. You know, I used to think heartbreak was a sign of weakness. Now I see it as proof I was brave enough to love at all. And darling, that's no small thing. To stand bare-hearted before someone and say, "Here, this is all of me." Would I do it again? Yes. Not for him but for me. Because even in the ashes, I found pieces of myself I didn't know were missing. And sometimes, the truest form of healing is simply sitting with your past, sipping something warm and slow, and whispering, "You did your best." So if you're out there, nursing your own silent ache, just know, you're not broken. You're becoming. One quiet heartbeat at a time. I once asked a stranger at a bar, "Do you think we ever really move on?" He was older, salt and pepper beard, eyes like he'd seen lifetimes. He sipped his bourbon, looked me straight in the soul, and said, "No, we don't move on. We move forward. There's a difference." And I felt that. Because moving on implies forgetting. Erasing. Pretending the story never happened. But I don't want to forget. I want to remember tenderly, truthfully, without bitterness. That's the hard part, isn't it, loving the memory without letting it cage you. He and I had our own universe. Little glances, quiet touches, unspoken jokes no one else would ever get. And even now, years later, I carry that universe like a galaxy inside me. It doesn't hurt the way it used to. Now, it hums. Soft and steady. Like background jazz on a rainy night. Maybe that's what healing really is. Not forgetting, but learning how to dance with the memory gracefully, gently, on your own terms. So tonight, with the candle flickering and the wine warm on my tongue, I offer a toast to old love, to new strength, to all the hearts still learning how to beat with both hope and history. Cheers, darling. We're doing just fine. Sometimes, when I'm walking through the city alone, I imagine what I'd say if I ran into him. Not the dramatic, tear-streaked monologue I used to rehearse in my head. No. Something softer. More real. Maybe I'd just smile and say, "Thank you." Not because it was perfect, but because it mattered. And in the grand mosaic of my life, his piece will always shimmer just slightly no matter how many new tiles are added. Funny thing is, I used to be terrified of running into him. Now I think I'd be okay. Maybe that's the quietest kind of closure, when your heart doesn't panic at the thought of the past. Just breathes. Easy. Like tonight. Like now. So if your story still stings, if the ending still echoes, that's alright. Let it echo. Let it remind you that you loved wildly, foolishly, beautifully. And that, my dear, is always worth remembering.